The coffee maker gurgled its morning greeting as Dr. Sarah Chen stumbled into her kitchen, hair resembling something that had survived a small explosion. She'd been up until 3 in the morning grading papers on theoretical xenobiology, a subject that had seemed purely academic until 6 months ago when the first alien contact changed everything humanity thought they knew about the universe. The soft chime from the living room indicated her roommate was awake.
Sarah had volunteered for the interspecies cultural exchange program partly out of scientific curiosity, and partly because the monthly stipend helped cover her ridiculous student loan payments.
What she hadn't anticipated was how thoroughly Zephyr would integrate himself into every aspect of human society, with the enthusiasm of a doctoral student and the social awareness of a particularly intelligent houseplant.
"Good morning, Sarah," came the melodic voice that sounded like wind chimes caught in a gentle breeze. Zephyr emerged from his room, his crystalline form catching and refracting the morning light into tiny rainbows that danced across the walls. Standing 7 feet tall with a roughly humanoid shape composed of what appeared to be living crystal, he was beautiful in an otherworldly way that still made Sarah's brain short-circuit occasionally. "Morning, Zeph," she mumbled, reaching for the largest mug in the cabinet. "Please tell me you didn't rearrange my books again. I know your species organizes information by harmonic frequency, but I'm still operating on the primitive human system of alphabetical order." "I have made no alterations to your literary collection," Zephyr replied, settling onto the couch with the fluid grace that all his species seemed to possess. "However, I must discuss with you a matter of great importance regarding human reproductive strategies." Sarah's coffee mug slipped from her fingers, clattering into the sink. "Excuse me, what now?" "I have been conducting extensive research into human mating behaviors," Zephyr continued, apparently oblivious to Sarah's mortification. "Your species' approach to pair bonding is fascinatingly inefficient. The amount of time wasted on uncertain signaling, the high failure rate of initial contact attempts, the seemingly arbitrary nature of compatibility assessment, it appears your species could benefit greatly from technological intervention." Sarah slowly turned to face her alien roommate, coffee completely forgotten. "Zephyr, please tell me you haven't been watching dating shows again. I have analyzed 17 different human courtship displays, including what your media refers to as The Bachelor, Love Island, and something called Married at First Sight, which appears to be a social experiment in random pairing with surprisingly positive outcomes." Zephyr's crystalline features shifted in what Sarah had learned to recognize as excitement. "The inefficiency is staggering, yet the emotional investment remains high. It suggests humans value the process as much as the outcome." "Oh, no," Sarah whispered, sinking into the chair across from him. "You're planning something, aren't you?" "Indeed. I have developed a comprehensive strategy to assist humans in achieving optimal romantic partnerships through the application of advanced Zephyrian biotechnology and social analysis algorithms. I believe the term your species uses is wingman, though I possess no wings and am not technically male by your binary classification system." Sarah stared at her alien roommate, watching the light shift through his crystalline form as he spoke. In the 6 months since Zephyr had arrived on Earth as part of the cultural exchange program, she had witnessed him attempt to improve everything from her dishwashing technique to the efficiency of traffic light patterns in downtown Portland. Each attempt had been well-intentioned, scientifically sound, and absolutely catastrophic in its execution. "Zephyr," she said carefully, "human relationships aren't really something you can optimize like a chemical equation. There's emotion involved, and chemistry, and timing, and about 1,000 other variables that don't follow logical patterns." "Precisely why technological assistance is required," Zephyr replied, his form brightening with enthusiasm. "Human emotional states create chaos in your decision-making processes. My species has developed sophisticated methods for analyzing compatibility matrices that could eliminate the guesswork entirely." Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from her best friend Maya. "Coffee in an hour? I need to vent about my dating disasters." She looked at the message, then at Zephyr, and felt a cold dread settling in her stomach. "You haven't already started helping people, have you?" she asked. "I may have offered assistance to several individuals during my observations of human social interactions," Zephyr admitted. "Your friend Maya appeared particularly distressed about her romantic difficulties during her last visit. I provided her with what your species calls advice." "What kind of advice?" Sarah's voice had climbed several octaves. "I suggested she might benefit from a more systematic approach to partner selection. I also may have mentioned that I possess technology capable of analyzing potential compatibility through biometric scanning and psychological profiling." Zephyr paused, his form dimming slightly. She seemed very interested in this concept. Sarah's phone immediately began ringing. Maya's contact photo, A selfie with her making an exaggerated surprised face filled the screen. Sarah answered with a growing sense of impending doom. "Sarah, your alien roommate is a genius." Maya's voice practically vibrated with excitement through the speaker. "He's going to help me find my soulmate using actual alien technology. This is like something out of a sci-fi movie, except it's real and happening to me."
"Maya, wait," Sarah began, but her friend was already in full enthusiasm mode.
"He's bringing some kind of scanner device to the coffee shop to analyze potential matches. Apparently it can detect pheromone compatibility and measure psychological harmony levels. Sarah, this could revolutionize dating. I might actually find someone who won't ghost me after 3 dates." The line went dead, leaving Sarah staring at her phone while Zephyr watched with what she could only describe as scientific anticipation. "This is going to be a disaster," she muttered. "On the contrary," Zephyr replied, rising to his full height. "This represents an unprecedented opportunity for cross-cultural collaboration. Your species' romantic practices provide fascinating insight into human social evolution, while my technology offers practical solutions to your inefficient pairing methods. Zephyr, you can't just scan random people in coffee shops. There are privacy laws, not to mention the fact that you might accidentally cause an international incident if word gets out that aliens are analyzing human dating patterns." "All scanning will be conducted with full consent," Zephyr assured her. "I have prepared a comprehensive consent form that explains the process in terms your species can understand. Additionally, I have been authorized by the Intergalactic Exchange Council to share certain non-sensitive technologies with humans as part of the cultural integration process." Sarah grabbed her jacket, already mentally preparing for damage control. "I'm coming with you to make sure you don't accidentally start an interdimensional war over coffee shop etiquette." "Your presence would be most welcome," Zephyr replied, retrieving a device that looked like a cross between a smartphone and a medical scanner from his room. "I am eager to observe how humans respond to scientifically optimized romantic assistance." As they prepared to leave, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that she was about to witness either the greatest breakthrough in human relationship dynamics or the most spectacular social disaster in recent memory. Knowing Zephyr's previous attempts at helping humanity, she suspected it might be both. The morning sun cast long shadows across the sidewalk as they walked toward downtown, Zephyr's crystalline form creating small prisms of light with each step. Other pedestrians gave them a wide berth, not out of fear, but out of the kind of respectful distance people maintained around celebrities or visiting dignitaries. The alien exchange program had made beings like Zephyr minor celebrities, though most humans still weren't quite sure how to interact with them socially.
"Have you considered," Sarah asked as they walked, "that maybe human dating is inefficient for a reason?"
That the uncertainty and the emotional chaos and even the failures are part of what makes relationships meaningful? Zephyr's form flickered thoughtfully. "An intriguing hypothesis. However, I have observed considerable distress among humans regarding their romantic difficulties. If technology can reduce suffering while maintaining the emotional satisfaction of successful pair bonding, would this not be beneficial?" Sarah had to admit he had a point. She'd certainly witnessed enough of Maya's dating disasters to understand the appeal of a more systematic approach. Still, something about applying alien technology to something as fundamentally human as falling in love felt like crossing a line she wasn't sure should be crossed. The coffee shop came into view, and Sarah could see Maya waiting outside, practically bouncing with excitement. This was really happening. Her alien roommate was about to become Earth's first extraterrestrial matchmaker, and somehow she'd become his reluctant assistant. "Just promise me," she said to Zephyr as they approached, "that if this goes horribly wrong, you'll let me handle the explanations to your superiors." "Agreed," Zephyr replied, his form brightening with anticipation. "Though I am confident this experiment will provide valuable data for both our species." Sarah hoped he was right, but her experience with Zephyr's previous helpful interventions suggested she should probably keep the number for the Intergalactic Exchange Council's emergency hotline ready on her phone. The coffee shop buzzed with typical Portland morning energy, a mix of caffeine addiction, laptop-wielding freelancers, and the kind of carefully cultivated casual atmosphere that cost $60 for interior design consultation. Maya practically launched herself at Sarah the moment they walked through the door, her eyes immediately fixing on Zephyr with the intensity of someone who'd discovered a unicorn in their backyard. "Okay, I've been thinking about this all morning," Maya said, grabbing Sarah's arm while continuing to stare at Zephyr. "This is going to be legendary. I've already made a list of guys I want to test for compatibility." She pulled out her phone, revealing what appeared to be a spreadsheet with photos, names, and detailed notes. I ranked them by physical attractiveness, career prospects, and how often they post gym selfies on Instagram. Maya, Sarah began. But her friend was already leading them to a corner table she'd apparently claimed earlier. I figured we could set up here, Maya continued, gesturing to the space she'd arranged with the territorial efficiency of someone who'd clearly thought this through. Good sight lines, close enough to the counter to intercept people ordering drinks, but far enough from the bathrooms to avoid awkwardness. Zephyr settled into the chair Maya indicated, his crystalline form immediately drawing curious glances from other patrons. He placed his scanning device on the table with the care of someone handling a religious artifact. The Harmony Detector 3000, he announced, apparently having named his device sometime between leaving the apartment and arriving at the coffee shop. It measures electromagnetic field compatibility, analyzes pheromone signatures, and calculates personality matrix correlations based on micro-expressions and vocal pattern analysis. That sounds incredibly scientific and slightly terrifying, Maya said, her eyes lighting up. How accurate is it? In laboratory conditions with my species, compatibility predictions show a 94.7% correlation with successful long-term pair bonding, Zephyr replied. However, human emotional responses may introduce variables not accounted for in our initial algorithms. Sarah watched in fascination and horror as Maya absorbed this information with the enthusiasm of someone who'd been told they'd won the relationship lottery. Around them, other coffee shop patrons had begun to take notice of their conversation, phones discreetly appearing as people started recording what was apparently the morning's entertainment. Right, Maya said, cracking her knuckles like she was preparing for battle. Let's start with Brad from my yoga class. He should be here in about 20 minutes for his usual post-workout smoothie. Perhaps we should discuss the consent protocols first, Sarah interjected, hoping to inject some sanity into the proceedings. You can't just scan random people without telling them what's happening. I have prepared an explanation, Zephyr said, producing a folded document from somewhere within his crystalline form. It details the scanning process, the data collected, privacy protections, and potential applications of the compatibility analysis. Sarah unfolded the paper and immediately understood why humans and aliens might never truly understand each other. The consent form was 3 pages of dense technical jargon that read like a cross between a scientific journal article and a legal contract written by someone who'd learned English exclusively from medical textbooks. Zephyr, this says electromagnetic biosignature harmonics analysis for optimization of romantic pair bonding success probability calculations. She read aloud. No human is going to understand what that means. Perhaps I should simplify, Zephyr mused. Would magical alien love detector be more comprehensible to your species? Let's workshop the explanation, Maya suggested diplomatically. Something that sounds scientific but doesn't require a doctorate to understand. Before they could refine Zephyr's communication strategy, a young man approached their table with the confidence of someone who'd clearly overheard their conversation and decided he wanted in on whatever was happening. Excuse me, he said, addressing Zephyr directly. But did I hear something about alien dating technology? Because I have to say, human dating apps are garbage, and I'm willing to try literally anything at this point. Sarah looked at the newcomer, mid-20s, coffee-stained shirt, the kind of desperate optimism that suggested recent romantic disappointments, and realized they'd attracted their first volunteer without even trying. This is perfect, Maya whispered, apparently deciding that consent protocols could be figured out on the fly. What's your name? Jake, he replied, sliding into the empty chair at their table without invitation. I just got out of a 3-year relationship that ended when my girlfriend told me she'd been finding herself with my best friend for the past 6 months. So yeah, I'm ready to try alien matchmaking. Zephyr's form brightened with what Sarah recognized as scientific excitement. Excellent. You appear to be experiencing the emotional state humans call romantic desperation, which provides an ideal baseline for measuring the effectiveness of technological intervention. That's probably accurate, Jake admitted. So how does this work? Do I need to fill out a questionnaire or provide biological samples or something? The scan is non-invasive, Zephyr explained, activating his device. I will analyze your bioelectromagnetic signature and create a compatibility profile that can be compared against other individuals to determine optimal pairing probability. The Harmony Detector 3000 hummed to life, projecting a soft blue light that swept over Jake from head to toe. The display screen filled with rapidly scrolling data that looked like a combination of vital signs monitoring and some kind of advanced chemistry analysis. Fascinating, Zephyr murmured, studying the readout. Your pheromone signature suggests high creativity and emotional intelligence, but with underlying anxiety markers consistent with recent pair bond dissolution. Stress hormone levels are elevated, but within normal recovery parameters. He's basically telling you that you're a creative person who's stressed about your breakup but handling it reasonably well, Sarah translated. I could have told you that, Jake replied. But I have to admit, having an alien confirm that feels somehow more official. Maya leaned forward, studying the device's display with intense focus. So now what? Does he need to be matched with someone, or do we wait for more data? Ideally, I would scan multiple individuals to create a comprehensive compatibility matrix, Zephyr explained. However, I can provide preliminary guidance based on his biosignature profile. What kind of guidance? Jake asked, clearly intrigued despite himself. Zephyr consulted his device thoughtfully. Your electromagnetic field resonates at frequencies typically compatible with individuals who possess high empathy markers and stable emotional regulation patterns. You would be well suited to someone who values emotional connection over purely physical attraction. That's actually really good advice, Jake said, looking surprised. My ex was definitely not big on emotional connection. She preferred my friend's abs to my feelings about anything. Additionally, Zephyr continued, your creativity markers suggest compatibility with individuals involved in artistic pursuits or innovative problem-solving fields. Traditional relationship advice might recommend seeking partners in environments where such individuals congregate, like art galleries or makerspaces instead of sports bars, Maya added helpfully. Exactly. Jake's enthusiasm was growing by the minute. This is way better than any dating app I've ever used. Can you scan other people here? I want to see if there's anyone compatible in the immediate vicinity. Sarah glanced around the coffee shop and realized they'd attracted a small audience. Other patrons were openly watching their table now, phones recording, conversations paused mid-sentence. She could practically see the social media posts forming. Aliens providing dating advice at local coffee shop, or first contact includes relationship counseling. Perhaps we should be more discreet, she suggested, but it was too late. A woman from the table behind them had already stood up and was approaching with the determination of someone who'd made an executive decision. I'm sorry to interrupt, she said, but I couldn't help overhearing about alien dating technology, and honestly, my track record with human men is so bad that I'm ready to try advice from any species. Welcome to the experiment, Maya said cheerfully, apparently having appointed herself as Zephyr's official human liaison. I'm Maya, this is Sarah, that's Zephyr, from the Andromeda Galaxy, and this is Jake, our first test subject. I'm Lisa, the newcomer replied, settling into another chair someone had dragged over from a nearby table. I'm a graphic designer. I've been single for 8 months, and my last 3 dates were with a guy who collected vintage mannequins, a man who insisted on paying for dinner with a bag of quarters, and someone who spent the entire evening explaining why the moon landing was fake. Your romantic difficulties appear to stem from insufficient partner screening rather than fundamental incompatibility issues, Zephyr observed, already preparing to scan Lisa. This suggests technological intervention could be highly beneficial. At this point, I'd let a magic 8-ball choose my next boyfriend, Lisa replied. An alien love detector feels like a significant upgrade. As Zephyr began scanning Lisa, Sarah noticed that their impromptu matchmaking session was rapidly expanding beyond their original table. More people had gathered around them, some openly curious, others pretending to read while obviously listening to every word. The coffee shop staff had stopped trying to pretend they weren't watching, and Sarah was pretty sure she saw someone live-streaming the entire event on their phone. This is getting out of hand, she murmured to Maya, but her friend was already consulting her spreadsheet of potential matches, completely absorbed in the process.
Actually, Maya replied, I think this is exactly what needed to happen.
Look around. When was the last time you saw this many strangers actually talking to each other instead of staring at their phones? Sarah had to admit Maya had a point. The usual coffee shop atmosphere of carefully maintained isolation had completely dissolved. People were introducing themselves, sharing dating horror stories, and watching Zephyr's compatibility analysis with the kind of communal interest usually reserved for sports events or natural disasters. Your biosignature indicates high compatibility with individuals who possess strong analytical thinking patterns and creative problem-solving abilities, Zephyr announced to Lisa. Consulting his device. Additionally, your stress responses suggest you would benefit from a partner with stable emotional regulation and natural empathy markers. So basically someone who's smart, creative, emotionally stable, and empathetic, Lisa summarized. That sounds like a unicorn, but I appreciate the optimism. Interestingly, Zephyr continued, glancing between Lisa and Jake, your compatibility indices show significant overlap. While not optimal for romantic pairing, you would likely form an excellent collaborative partnership or friendship. Jake and Lisa looked at each other with the kind of mutual assessment that happens when two people realize they might have found a kindred spirit in an unexpected place.
Want to grab coffee sometime and complain about dating? Lisa asked.
Absolutely, Jake replied. I feel like we could write a book about terrible relationship experiences. Sarah watched this interaction with growing amazement. Zephyr's technology hadn't predicted a romantic match, but it had somehow identified two people who would clearly get along well. Whether that was due to alien technology or simply the natural result of bringing together people who were open to connection, she couldn't say. This is fascinating data, Zephyr announced to the growing crowd. Human romantic compatibility appears to involve significantly more variables than our initial models predicted. However, the technology does seem effective at identifying general social compatibility and potential friendship networks. A man from across the coffee shop raised his hand like he was in a classroom. Can you explain why I keep dating people who seem perfect for the first month and then turn out to be completely incompatible? That, Zephyr replied with what Sarah was learning to recognize as his academic voice, is an excellent question that will require additional data collection to answer properly. Sarah realized they were no longer conducting a small experiment in alien-assisted matchmaking. They had accidentally created Portland's first interspecies relationship counseling session, and if the number of phones recording the event was any indication, word was definitely going to spread beyond their quiet coffee shop corner. Zephyr, she said quietly, I think we might have started something bigger than we intended.
Indeed, he replied, his crystalline form practically glowing with excitement.
This presents unprecedented research opportunities for understanding human social dynamics. Sarah just hoped they wouldn't need those research opportunities to explain themselves to any government agencies that might take interest in unauthorized alien dating experiments. By noon, what had started as a casual coffee shop experiment had evolved into something resembling a cross between a scientific conference and a group therapy session. Word had spread through social media with the speed that only truly bizarre news could achieve in the modern age. Sarah's phone had been buzzing continuously with texts, calls, and notification alerts about viral videos featuring her alien roommate dispensing relationship advice to an ever-growing crowd of Portland's romantically frustrated population. The coffee shop owner, a woman named Carmen who had clearly never expected her business model to include intergalactic dating consultations, had initially looked concerned about the disruption to her normal operations. However, as the crowd grew and people kept ordering drinks and pastries while waiting for their turn with the alien love detector, she'd apparently decided that unexpected revenue streams were better than asking everyone to leave. I've never sold this much coffee on a Tuesday morning, Carmen confided to Sarah during a brief lull. Your alien friend is better for business than free Wi-Fi. Sarah surveyed the scene that had developed around their original table. Zephyr sat at the center of it all, his crystalline form catching and reflecting the afternoon light streaming through the windows, creating an almost ethereal atmosphere that seemed perfectly suited for dispensing otherworldly wisdom about human relationships. His Harmony Detector 3000 had been scanning people continuously for over 2 hours, building what he enthusiastically called a comprehensive database of human romantic compatibility matrices. Maya had appointed herself as Zephyr's official human translator and coordinator, organizing the growing line of volunteers and helping explain the scanning process in terms that didn't require advanced degrees in xenobiology to understand. She'd also started a running commentary on social media that had attracted the attention of local news outlets. Next up, Maya announced, consulting the list she'd been maintaining, we have David, who's a software engineer and says he's been using dating apps for 3 years with what he describes as catastrophically poor results. David, a lanky man in his early 30s wearing a t-shirt that read, I turn coffee into code, approached Zephyr's scanning station with the resigned expression of someone who had exhausted all conventional options and was ready to try something completely different. I should probably mention, David said as he sat down, that my last relationship ended when my girlfriend told me she felt like she was dating a very polite robot who happened to be good at fixing computers. So, there's that. Interesting, Zephyr replied, beginning the scanning process. Your biosignature suggests high analytical intelligence but with significant social anxiety markers.
This combination often creates challenges in traditional human courtship scenarios.
Yeah, that tracks, David admitted.
watching the display fill with data about his electromagnetic field and pheromone signature.
I'm much better at debugging code than reading emotional cues.
However, Zephyr continued, studying the readout intently. Your compatibility indices suggest you would pair well with individuals who value intellectual connection and direct communication over traditional romantic gestures.
Additionally, your stress patterns indicate you function optimally in low-pressure social environments.
So basically, I need to find someone who appreciates honesty over smooth talking and doesn't expect grand romantic gestures, David asked.
Precisely. Your ideal partner would likely be someone who values substance over style and appreciates systematic approaches to problem solving.
Zephyr paused, consulting his device. Interestingly, your biosignature shows strong compatibility markers with someone in our current group. Every head in the immediate vicinity turned to look around, trying to figure out who Zephyr might be referring to. The alien had inadvertently created a real-time dating game show, and everyone present was now invested in the outcome. Based on the compatibility analysis, Zephyr announced, David's biosignature shows optimal harmony with... He paused dramatically, apparently having learned something about human entertainment preferences during his study of reality television. Rachel, who was scanned approximately 47 minutes ago.
Rachel, a woman who worked as a technical writer and had described herself as aggressively introverted, looked up from her laptop with an expression of surprise. She'd been quietly working in the corner, presumably waiting to see if anyone would turn out to be compatible with someone who preferred books to parties and cats to most people.
Really? She asked, closing her laptop and looking at David with new interest. The alien computer thinks we'd be compatible? According to the bioelectromagnetic analysis, yes, Zephyr confirmed. You both show high analytical intelligence, preference for direct communication, and optimal stress responses in quiet environments. Additionally, your creativity markers complement his systematic problem-solving patterns.
David and Rachel looked at each other across the coffee shop with the careful assessment of two scientists examining an interesting hypothesis. Neither seemed sure how to proceed with alien-recommended romantic compatibility, but both appeared intrigued by the possibility.
Want to grab dinner somewhere quiet and see if alien technology knows what it's talking about? David asked, with the straightforward approach that Zephyr had identified as his natural communication style. I know a place that serves excellent food and has terrible lighting for taking selfies, Rachel replied. It should be perfect for people who prefer conversation to Instagram opportunities. As David and Rachel exchanged contact information, Sarah noticed something interesting happening in the broader group. People weren't just waiting for their own compatibility analyses anymore. They were genuinely engaging with each other, sharing stories, asking questions about Zephyr's technology, and forming connections that had nothing to do with romantic matching. Jake and Lisa had indeed discovered they made excellent friends and were currently planning to attend a local art gallery opening together. Two women who had bonded over their shared experiences with dating app disasters were making plans for a terrible date story night. An older man who'd been divorced for 5 years was deep in conversation with a woman who'd recently moved to Portland and was looking for ways to meet people who shared her interest in hiking and environmental activism.
This is remarkable, Zephyr observed to Sarah during a brief break between scans. The technology appears to be facilitating social connections beyond simple romantic matching.
Humans seem to value the process of connection as much as the potential outcomes. I think you've accidentally created something more valuable than a dating service, Sarah replied, watching the interactions happening around them. You've given people permission to be open about what they're looking for and created a space where it's safe to make connections. The data supports your hypothesis, Zephyr agreed, studying his device's accumulated information. Successful human social bonding appears to require emotional safety, shared vulnerability, and structured opportunities for authentic interaction. The scanning process provides a framework that removes some of the uncertainty and rejection anxiety that typically inhibits human social connections. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of someone Sarah hadn't expected to see. Dr. Patricia Williams from the university's xenobiology department, accompanied by what appeared to be a small news crew from a local television station. Dr. Chen, Patricia said, approaching their table with the expression of someone who is trying to maintain professional composure while internally screaming, I believe we need to discuss the protocols for unauthorized applications of alien technology in public settings. Sarah felt her stomach drop. She'd been so caught up in the success of Zephyr's impromptu social experiment that she'd forgotten about the potential regulatory implications of using advanced alien technology for civilian applications without proper oversight. "Dr. Williams," she began, "I can explain." "Actually," Patricia interrupted, "I'm not here to shut this down. I'm here because the footage of this event has gone viral, and we've received calls from relationship researchers at universities across the country wanting to know if they can replicate this experiment. The Department of Intergalactic Affairs has asked me to observe and document the process for potential official implementation." "You mean this could become an actual program?" Maya asked, looking up from her social media management duties. "If the results prove scientifically valid and socially beneficial, yes," Patricia replied. "Though we'll need to establish proper protocols and safety measures. We can't have aliens conducting unauthorized psychological analysis on random civilians, no matter how positive the outcomes appear to be." Zephyr's form brightened considerably at this news. "I would be most pleased to collaborate with human researchers on developing standardized compatibility analysis protocols. The data collected today provides an excellent foundation for broader studies. However," Patricia continued, "we'll need to conclude today's session and transition to a controlled research environment for any future experiments. This has been fascinating to observe, but we can't continue operating without proper oversight." The crowd that had gathered around their table voiced collective disappointment at this news. Over the course of the morning, the coffee shop had transformed from a routine stop for caffeine into a community space where people felt comfortable being vulnerable about their relationship hopes and fears. "What if we made this a regular thing?" Carmen, the coffee shop owner, suggested, with proper permissions and protocols, of course. "I've never seen my customers this engaged with each other. Usually everyone just sits alone with their laptops." "That's actually an intriguing possibility," Patricia mused. "Controlled environments for studying human social dynamics with technological assistance could provide valuable research data." Zephyr turned to address the gathered crowd, his crystalline form seeming to pulse with gentle light. "Today has provided invaluable insights into human social bonding patterns. While we must transition to more formal research protocols, I am grateful for your participation in this cultural exchange experiment." "Before we wrap up," Maya called out, "does anyone want to share what they learned from this experience?" Rachel, who was still sitting next to David and appeared to be having an excellent conversation about their shared interest in science fiction novels, raised her hand.
I learned that sometimes you need an outside perspective to see what you're actually looking for in a relationship.
Even if that perspective happens to come from another galaxy. "I learned that vulnerability is contagious in a good way," added Lisa. "When everyone else is being honest about their dating disasters, it makes it easier to admit your own." Jake nodded in agreement. "I think I learned that compatibility isn't just about finding someone exactly like you. It's about finding someone who complements your strengths and understands your weaknesses." As the crowd began to disperse, people exchanging contact information and making plans to continue conversations elsewhere, Sarah felt a sense of satisfaction she hadn't expected. Zephyr's well-intentioned experiment in human relationship optimization had indeed created something valuable, just not in the way anyone had anticipated. "So," she asked Zephyr as they packed up the Harmony Detector 3000, "what did you learn about human relationships today?" "That they are far more complex and far more beautiful than any algorithm could predict," he replied thoughtfully. "The technology provided useful data that the real connections happen through courage, honesty, and willingness to be open to unexpected possibilities." "That," Sarah said, "might be the most human thing you've ever said." As they left the coffee shop, Sarah's phone was already buzzing with messages from research colleagues, journalists, and what appeared to be several television producers interested in the story of Earth's first alien matchmaker. She had a feeling that Zephyr's simple desire to help humans find love more efficiently had accidentally launched something much larger than either of them had intended. But watching the people who were still talking in small groups outside the coffee shop, making plans and exchanging stories, she thought maybe that wasn't such a bad thing after all. 3 weeks after what the internet had dubbed the Portland Alien Love Connection event, Sarah found herself sitting in a university conference room that had been hastily converted into a research coordination center. The walls were covered with whiteboards displaying compatibility matrices, social interaction flowcharts, and what appeared to be Zephyr's attempt to diagram human emotional responses using crystalline mathematical models that looked like geometric art pieces. Dr. Patricia Williams sat at the head of the table, surrounded by a collection of researchers who represented an unlikely collaboration between xenobiologists, social psychologists, relationship therapists, and what Sarah was pretty sure was at least one government liaison who kept taking notes in a notebook that disappeared whenever anyone looked directly at it.
The preliminary data analysis is remarkable, Dr. Corfang.
Martinez from the psychology department was saying, consulting a tablet full of charts and graphs. We've tracked the participants from the coffee shop experiment, and the social connection success rate is significantly higher than control groups using traditional dating methods. Define success, requested Dr. Thompson, the relationship researcher who'd driven up from San Francisco specifically for this meeting. Ongoing communication, repeated social interactions, and self-reported satisfaction with the connections made, Dr. Martinez replied. Of the 37 people who participated in the scanning process, 28 have maintained contact with at least one other participant, 15 have formed what they describe as meaningful friendships, and 6 couples are actively dating.
And the romantic compatibility predictions? Dr.
Williams asked. Zephyr, who had been quietly observing the human research discussion, activated a holographic display that projected above the conference table. The three-dimensional charts showed compatibility predictions versus actual relationship outcomes in a format that somehow managed to be both scientifically precise and aesthetically beautiful. The romantic pairing prediction showed 73% accuracy for successful initial connections, Zephyr reported. However, the long-term compatibility analysis requires additional data collection time. Human relationships appear to evolve in ways that initial bioelectromagnetic scanning cannot fully predict. What about the unintended social benefits? Dr. Thompson asked. The friendship formations, the community-building aspects? Those outcomes exceeded all projections, Zephyr admitted, his crystalline form brightening with what Sarah had learned to recognize as scientific excitement. Human social bonding appears to be enhanced by structured opportunities for authentic interaction, regardless of romantic compatibility. The scanning process created a framework for vulnerability and openness that facilitated connections across multiple relationship categories. Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from Maya. You need to see this. Channel 8 is doing a follow-up story on the coffee shop people. She discreetly checked the message and saw a link to a news segment titled Love in the Time of Aliens, Portland's Interspecies Dating Experiment Update. Dr. Jen, Williams said, pulling Sarah's attention back to the meeting. As the primary human liaison for this project, what's your assessment of the social impact and potential for broader implementation? Sarah looked around the room at the assembled researchers, then at Zephyr, whose alien perspective had accidentally revealed something important about human nature that they'd apparently been missing all along. I think Zephyr discovered that humans don't necessarily need alien technology to form better relationships, she said carefully. What we need is permission to be honest about what we're looking for, and structured opportunities to connect with people who are similarly open to genuine interaction. The technology simply provided credibility and reduced anxiety, Zephyr added. Humans appear more willing to engage in authentic communication when they believe there is scientific validity to the process. So essentially, you created a placebo effect that enabled real social connections.
Dr.
Martinez asked. That's a reductive analysis, the government liaison interjected, speaking for the first time. The bioelectromagnetic scanning technology does provide genuine compatibility data. The question is whether that data actually improves relationship outcomes or simply gives people confidence to pursue connections they might have made anyway. Dr. Williams leaned forward, clearly intrigued by the research implications. What if we designed a controlled study? Multiple groups, some with actual alien technology, some with sophisticated but ultimately fake scanning devices, some with no technology at all, but the same structured social interaction framework. That would provide fascinating data, Zephyr agreed. Though I must note that deliberately misleading humans about the nature of the technology might raise ethical concerns regarding informed consent. We could be transparent about the study design, Dr. Thompson suggested. Tell participants that some groups will receive different types of technological assistance, without specifying which group gets what level of technology. Sarah's phone buzzed again, this time with a call from an unknown number. She let it go to voicemail, but noticed that she'd accumulated 7 missed calls and 14 text messages in the past hour. Her brief moment of checking her phone was interrupted by Dr. Williams' assistant rushing into the conference room with an expression of barely controlled panic. Dr. Williams, the assistant said, we have a situation. The story about the alien dating experiment has been picked up nationally. We're getting calls from news outlets, government agencies, and what appears to be several reality television producers. Also, there's a crowd of people gathering outside the building, asking when the next compatibility scanning session will be available. Everyone in the room turned to look out the conference room windows, which faced the university's main quad. Sure enough, a group of people had assembled near the xenobiology building.
some carrying signs that read things like, "Bring back the alien love doctor," and "Scientific matchmaking for everyone." How many people?
Dr. Williams asked with the tone of someone trying to calculate whether this was a manageable public relations situation or a full-scale crisis. "About 50 at last count, but the number keeps growing," the assistant replied. "Campus security is asking how you'd like them to handle the situation." Sarah looked at Zephyr, who was studying the crowd below with what appeared to be a mixture of fascination and concern. His impromptu attempt to help humans optimize their romantic relationships had apparently struck a chord that resonated far beyond their expectations. "Dr. Williams," she said, "I think we need to make a decision about whether this remains a small-scale research project or becomes something larger. The demand clearly exists." "Dr. Waldeco," Martinez observed, "people are hungry for new approaches to relationships and social connection. But we can't just turn an alien cultural exchange participant into a public dating service," the government liaison pointed out. "There are protocols, international agreements, and oversight requirements to consider." Zephyr stood, his full 7-foot height, commanding attention as light refracted through his crystalline form and painted rainbow patterns across the conference room walls. "If I may offer a perspective from someone who has observed both species' approaches to this situation," he said, "humans appear to be experiencing a social connection crisis that extends beyond romantic relationships. The enthusiasm for technological assistance suggests deeper needs for community, authentic interaction, and structured opportunities for vulnerability." "You're saying this isn't really about dating apps versus alien scanners?" Dr. Thompson asked. "Precisely. This appears to be about creating social frameworks that encourage genuine human connection in an increasingly isolated society. The technology is simply a catalyst for behaviors that humans are already motivated to engage in, given appropriate circumstances." Dr. Williams was quiet for a long moment, studying the crowd outside, and then looking at the research data displayed around the room. "What if," she said slowly, "we approach this as a broader social research initiative? Not just alien technology for dating, but studying how different types of technological and social interventions affect human relationship formation across multiple categories." "A comprehensive social connection research program," Dr. Martinez agreed, clearly warming to the idea. "We could study everything from friendship formation to community building to romantic compatibility. With proper oversight and ethical protocols," the government liaison added quickly. Sarah's phone rang again, and this time she recognized Maya's number. She answered quickly, expecting an update on the news coverage. "Sarah," Maya's voice was breathless with excitement. "You're not going to believe this. I just got off the phone with someone from a television network. They want to create a show based on Zephyr's compatibility analysis. Like an actual television show where aliens help humans find love." Sarah looked around the conference room at the assembled researchers and realized that their small experiment had crossed some kind of threshold from scientific curiosity to cultural phenomenon. "Maya," she said carefully, "I think you should come to the university. There are some things we need to discuss about the direction this is heading." "Oh, and Sarah?" Maya added before hanging up. "Rachel and David are engaged. Apparently alien technology is really good at predicting romantic compatibility because they're absolutely perfect for each other." Sarah ended the call and looked at Zephyr, who had been listening to her side of the conversation with obvious interest. "It appears," Zephyr said thoughtfully, "that our small cultural exchange experiment has evolved into something significantly larger than either of our species anticipated."
The question is, Dr.
Williams said, "whether we try to contain it or embrace it and see where it leads." Looking out at the crowd of people who had gathered hoping for another chance at alien-assisted social connection, Sarah realized they might not have a choice in the matter. Human loneliness and the desire for authentic connection had apparently been waiting for exactly this kind of intervention, and now that people knew it was possible, they weren't likely to accept that it was just a one-time experiment. "I think," she said to the room, "we're about to find out whether aliens and humans can collaborate on solving problems that are bigger than either species expected to tackle." Outside the window, the crowd continued to grow, and Sarah's phone kept buzzing with calls from people who wanted to know when they could sign up for the next session with Earth's first interspecies relationship counselor. The experiment, it seemed, was just beginning. 6 months after the Portland Alien Love Connection event, Sarah stood in the lobby of what had once been an abandoned warehouse in the Pearl District, but was now the headquarters of the Interspecies Social Connection Research Institute. The space buzzed with activity that would have seemed like science fiction a year earlier. Humans and aliens working side by side on relationship research, compatibility algorithms running on hybrid human-alien computer systems, and what appeared to be a coffee shop that served beverages designed for multiple species' biochemical needs. The transformation had been rapid and slightly overwhelming. What started as Zephyr's well-intentioned attempt to help Maya find a boyfriend had evolved into a collaborative research initiative that involved 3 universities, 2 government agencies, and funding from sources Sarah was pretty sure she didn't want to know too much about. The success stories from their initial coffee shop experiment had generated enough media attention and scientific interest to launch what was now being called the most important social psychology research project of the century. Dr.
Chen? Called a voice from across the lobby. Sarah turned to see Dr. Raxid,
Patricia Williams, approaching with someone she didn't recognize, a tall woman with short silver hair and the kind of confident demeanor that suggested important governmental or academic affiliations. Sarah, I'd like you to meet Director Helen Morrison from the International Cooperation in Xenological Studies Board, Williams said. She's here to observe today's session and evaluate the program for potential global implementation. Sarah shook Director Morrison's hand while trying to process the implications of global implementation. Their small experiment had apparently attracted attention from organizations she hadn't known existed. Dr. Chen, Director Morrison said, I've reviewed the data from your initial experiments, and the social connection success rates are remarkable. We're particularly interested in the applications beyond romantic relationships, the community building, friendship formation, and social anxiety reduction aspects. It's been surprising how broadly applicable the framework turned out to be, Sarah agreed. Zephyr's technology provided the initial catalyst, but what people really responded to was having a structured, low-pressure environment for authentic social interaction. They were interrupted by Maya, who emerged from the main research area with a tablet full of scheduling information and the kind of organized efficiency that suggested she'd found her calling in project management. Sarah, we're ready for the afternoon session, Maya announced. Today's group includes the follow-up participants from month 3, plus some new volunteers and a delegation from the University of Copenhagen who want to observe the process for potential replication in Europe. Sarah followed Maya and Director Morrison into the main research space, which had been designed to accommodate both human and alien participants comfortably. The room featured adjustable lighting, furniture that could be modified for different species' physical requirements, and wall displays that showed real-time compatibility data in formats that both humans and aliens could interpret. Zephyr was already present, along with 2 other alien researchers who had joined the project as it expanded. The original Harmony Detector 3000 had been upgraded into a more sophisticated system that could analyze not just romantic compatibility, but friendship potential, collaborative work relationships, and general social harmony indicators. Welcome, everyone. Zephyr addressed the gathered group, which included both familiar faces from previous sessions and newcomers who had traveled from around the world to participate. Today's session will focus on long-term relationship stability analysis and community integration compatibility. Sarah noticed Jake and Lisa in the group, along with Rachel and David, whose engagement had become something of a poster story for alien-assisted relationship success. But she also saw participants who weren't looking for romantic connections. Professionals interested in building better work relationships, recent immigrants hoping to form social connections in their new communities, and elderly individuals who wanted to expand their social networks.
Before we begin the scanning process, Zephyr continued, I'd like to share some observations about what we've learned over the past 6 months of research. The room quieted as Zephyr activated a holographic display that showed comprehensive data about the hundreds of participants who had gone through their compatibility analysis process.
Human social connection appears to operate on multiple levels simultaneously, Zephyr explained, highlighting different data streams in the display. Romantic compatibility involves bioelectromagnetic harmony, psychological complementarity, and shared life goal alignment. However, successful long-term relationships also require what humans call emotional intelligence, the ability to adapt to changing circumstances, and compatible approaches to conflict resolution. What about the non-romantic connections? Asked Dr. Park Hansen from the Copenhagen delegation. We're particularly interested in applications for social integration programs and community development. Fascinating outcomes, Zephyr replied, shifting the display to show friendship formation data. The scanning process appears to identify not just individual compatibility, but optimal group dynamics. We've successfully predicted successful book clubs, hiking groups, professional collaborations, and even neighborhood community organizations. Director Morrison was taking notes rapidly, clearly impressed by the scope of applications they'd discovered. What's the scalability potential? Could these methods be implemented in larger social contexts? We've been testing exactly that, Dr. Williams interjected. activating another display. We've run compatibility analyses for incoming freshman classes at 3 universities, new employee orientations at 2 major corporations, and a refugee resettlement program in Seattle. The results show significantly improved social integration and reduced isolation across all demographics. Sarah watched the data presentations with a mixture of pride and slight bewilderment. The simple question of how to help Maya find a better dating experience had somehow evolved into a comprehensive approach to addressing human social isolation and community-building challenges. However, Zephyr added, we've also discovered limitations to technological intervention. Successful relationships, romantic, friendship, or community, ultimately depend on human choices, effort, and willingness to grow. The scanning provides optimal starting conditions, but humans must still do the emotional work of building connections. Can you elaborate on that? Asked Dr. Pritt. Hanson. Rachel, the technical writer who had been one of their first successful matches, raised her hand. I can speak to that, she said. The compatibility analysis told David and me that we had excellent potential for a relationship, but that didn't automatically make us perfect for each other. We still had to learn how to communicate, work through disagreements, and figure out how to blend our different approaches to life. The alien technology gave us confidence to start, but we had to build the actual relationship ourselves. David nodded in agreement. It's like getting a really good map for a hiking trail. The map shows you the best route and potential obstacles, but you still have to do the actual hiking. That's a useful metaphor, Director Morrison observed. So the technology provides information and framework, but humans retain agency and responsibility for relationship outcomes. Exactly, Sarah confirmed, which is why this has been more successful than we initially expected. People don't feel like the technology is controlling their relationships. They feel like it's giving them better information for making their own decisions. The session continued, with new participants going through the compatibility analysis process, but Sarah found herself reflecting on the broader implications of what they'd created. Their research had revealed something important about human nature. People were desperately hungry for authentic connection and were willing to try almost anything that might help them find it, including taking relationship advice from aliens. But more than that, they discovered that the key ingredients for successful social connections weren't particularly mysterious. They just required the right conditions to flourish: safety, authenticity, structured interaction opportunities, and reduced anxiety about rejection. The alien technology had provided a framework for these conditions, but humans had done the actual work of connecting with each other. As the afternoon session wound down, Maya approached Sarah with a familiar expression of excitement that suggested another development in their ever-expanding experiment. Sarah, you're going to want to hear this, Maya said. I just got off a call with a representative from the United Nations. They want to discuss implementing modified versions of our social connection research in refugee camps and post-conflict community rebuilding programs. Sarah looked around the research facility they'd built, at the humans and aliens working together on relationship compatibility algorithms, at the participants who were forming genuine connections with each other, and at Director Morrison, who was clearly preparing to recommend global expansion of their program. Maya, she said, I think we've accidentally solved a problem we didn't even know existed. The problem of human loneliness in an increasingly connected but emotionally isolated world? Maya asked. Exactly. Sarah looked over at Zephyr, who was explaining bioelectromagnetic field harmonics to a group of fascinated Copenhagen researchers, and somehow, it took an alien who was trying to understand human dating shows to figure out what we were missing. Director Morrison approached them, having finished her detailed observations of the session. Dr. Chen, I'm prepared to recommend full funding and international expansion for this program. The social connection success rates and community building applications are beyond anything we've seen in traditional social psychology interventions. What kind of expansion are we talking about? Sarah asked, though she suspected the answer was going to be larger than anything she'd imagined when this all started. Integration with immigration services, university orientation programs, corporate team building, senior citizen community programs, post-disaster social rebuilding initiatives. Essentially, any context where humans need help forming meaningful social connections quickly and effectively. Sarah realized that Zephyr's simple desire to help one human friend find love had accidentally become a solution to one of the most pervasive challenges of modern society: the epidemic of loneliness and social isolation that affected millions of people despite unprecedented global connectivity. There's one thing I want to make sure we don't lose sight of, Sarah said to Director Morrison. The technology is useful, but what really made this work was creating spaces where people felt safe being vulnerable about their desire for connection. We can't let the alien scanner aspect overshadow the human community aspect. Agreed, Director Morrison replied. The technology provides credibility and reduces initial anxiety, but the real value is in the social framework we've developed around it. As the session ended and participants gathered in small groups to continue conversations, exchange contact information, and make plans for future meetings, Sarah felt a deep satisfaction watching the connections forming around them. Whatever challenges lay ahead in scaling their experiment to global proportions, they had proven something important. Humans were capable of authentic connection when given the right conditions and support. Zephyr approached her as the crowd began to thin, his crystalline form catching the late afternoon light streaming through the warehouse windows. "Sarah," he said thoughtfully, "I believe we have successfully achieved the original objective of helping Maya find meaningful romantic connection. However, the scope of the project has expanded considerably beyond initial parameters."
"Just slightly," Sarah laughed. "Are you okay with how big this has become?"
"I know you originally just wanted to help one friend with her dating problems. The data has been fascinating," Zephyr replied. "But more importantly, I have observed that humans possess remarkable capacity for connection and community when provided with appropriate frameworks for authentic interaction. This suggests that many of the social problems your species experiences may be more easily solvable than previously understood." "What do you mean?" "Loneliness, isolation, community breakdown, social anxiety. These appear to be largely systemic problems rather than individual failures. Humans are fundamentally social beings who have created living conditions that work against their social nature. The solution is not necessarily complex technology, but rather intentional social design that supports natural human connection patterns." Sarah looked around the research facility that had grown from their coffee shop experiment, at the international delegation studying their methods, at the participants who had found friends, partners, and communities through their program. "So, what you're saying is that we accidentally discovered that humans don't actually suck at relationships, we just haven't been creating good conditions for relationships to develop?" "Precisely," Zephyr confirmed. "Your species possesses remarkable capacity for love, friendship, cooperation, and community. The technology simply helped create conditions where these natural abilities could function optimally." As they prepared to leave for the day, Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. "6-month anniversary dinner tonight. Want to join us to celebrate alien matchmaking success?" Sarah showed the message to Zephyr, who brightened with what she'd learned to recognize as pleased satisfaction. "I believe," Zephyr said, "this experiment has been successful beyond our original hypotheses." Sarah looked out at the Portland skyline, knowing that in research facilities and community centers around the world, other humans and aliens were probably working together on similar programs, helping people find the connections they'd been searching for all along.
Yeah, she agreed.
"I think it has been." 6 months ago, she'd been grading papers on theoretical xenobiology and sharing an apartment with an alien who was fascinated by human reality TV shows. Now she was running an international research program that was revolutionizing how humans thought about relationships and community building. It had been, she reflected, a very interesting year for interspecies cooperation. And if the calls she'd been getting from other alien species interested in studying human social dynamics were any indication, it was probably just the beginning. Sometimes, Sarah thought as she and Zephyr headed home through the bustling Portland streets, the best solutions to complex problems came from the most unexpected directions. And sometimes, all it took was one alien who cared enough about human happiness to try to help, even when they had no idea what they were doing. The fact that it had worked out better than anyone could have predicted was just proof that the universe still had the capacity to surprise everyone, humans and aliens alike.